Hey, good morning to you. Mark Sudduth here in Wilmington, North Carolina. Welcome to Monday, December 8th, 2025's edition of Talking Weather. Good to be with you this sunny Monday here, finally in Southeast North Carolina. Let's, oh, see, I'm on twice. Got to remember to take the volume down there for the monitor. I want to get rid of my background here. Let's see if I can do that because I can show you that none. There we go. Nice. So yeah, this is all lit from natural lighting outside because the sun is finally shining here in Wilmington. So on today's show, the usual stuff. We're going to take a look at some of the stats and figures and headlines over the last few days and a look ahead to the next week's weather. Of course, we'll do our usual searching for that algorithm-based hype storm that still doesn't, hint, hint, seem to exist in the models just yet, but a lot of cold air on the way. There's a lot of cold air already here. We have some wintry weather in parts of my neck of the woods again, at least close to it in the Carolinas and Southern Virginia. We'll look at that. We'll take a look at our cams, and then at the bottom of the hour, so I got to keep an eye on my time here at 10:30 plus or minus a few minutes. Our guest of the day, Shea Gibson, will join me, meteorologist from Charleston, South Carolina, and we are going to talk about contrails. Contrails, not chemtrails, though they get misconstrued. We're going to discuss all of that. That should be pretty good. And we're going to look at the meteorology and the mechanics, the physics behind contrails. And maybe a day like today over southeast North Carolina would be such a day to get them with nice clear skies. Let's wait until we get Shea on to talk about that more. So let me jump into the screen share mode. By the way, going solo today, CJ will be back with me tomorrow. Monday is very busy for him. He has a regular day job. This is my job working in weather, social media. Am I a weather influencer? I don't know. Have I influenced anybody? Trying to anyway, to educate people. But this is what I do for a living, not the show. The show's just part of it, something I enjoy doing to strike up conversations about weather and get people paying attention. But, mainly hurricanes, of course. But we've branched out into covering other weather over the last 10 years. And here we are. So this is what I do full time. And CJ does not. So he's got a busy Monday and he'll join us coming up soon. So, again, to recap on the show today, winter weather and cold, it's here now, but it looks like a warm up is coming. I'll show you a post or two from our friend Ben Knoll. And then in the main second block, bottom of the hour, Contrails with Shea Gibson. How many of you are excited about that? That should be pretty darn good. Um, a conversation about contrails. So on the chat here, let's just see who we have real quick. Our usual folks, which I appreciate. I recognize a couple of you, and then a few new names on there. Appreciate you tuning in if it's your first time. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share, let people know we're doing this. You can watch it later. Yeah, I'm going to keep doing this. This is a lot of fun for me. It takes very little effort because this is something I'd be doing anyway. Looking at the weather, communicating with people over text. Did you see this? Did you see that? I figured let's just do it live. It's more fun that way. And we can be engaging and include you guys. All right. So that's the three bullet highlights for what we're going to discuss today. I'm going to open it up with a little bit of bragging as I'm telling you, my Firefox is having issues. I cannot open YouTube for the life of me. But anyway, I'm a big Duke guy, in case you didn't know that, and they won over Michigan State this weekend, and they're now 10-0 in basketball. Yay! Great, awesome, right? And ACC football champs. You have to have seen that game to have believed it. My daughter stayed up with me. She's 10, and I explained to her all about college football, and she's been to a few high school football games with my wife and myself, as lots of our kids have participated one way or another in our high school, not in football, but either cheerleading or something related to Hoggard High. So we've done a lot of high school games, but she stayed up and we watched this game. Duke killing it. Yeah, all right, pretty good. Sorry for you Chiefs fans out there, by the way, NFL. I mean, do they really have to be 6-7? Come on. I know the kids probably love that. The Chiefs are the funniest thing ever. They are 6-7. That's as far as we're gonna go with that. By the way, I'm having chair problems today too. Not only Firefox and YouTube problems, but my chair, it's one of those hydraulic deals, and it keeps sinking. And no, it's not because I'm getting heavier. I've actually become lighter in the last month or so. Story for another day, working on, and no, it's not from any, it's just from eating better. Very simple. But my chair keeps sinking. Stupid gravity. It's just, I don't know. I'm trying, maybe I should sit up straighter, but there's only so much I can do. I'm not a giraffe. Anyway, we'll get through all these technical issues and we'll get on with the show. All right. Speaking of football, I had to show you this. It is weather related. Granted, my first two tabs here are not, but that's my personality. I'm a big Duke fan, so I had to share that with you. This, though, is really awesome. I mean, come on, that is fantastic. I wanted to show this to you. Uh, Missoula, Montana. Can you imagine seeing a football game in Missoula, Montana? That would be spectacular. So just thought I would run that past you. All right, national high and low temperatures. So I had ChatGPT help me out with creating this graphic. Can't you tell? You can tell this is like one of those things where you spot the differences or you find. Remember Weekly Reader and they had like that find whatever thing and there would be little hidden things in there. That's your clue right there that this is AI generative whatever except for these icons here. I added those myself. I did that in Photoshop because it wouldn't do it. ChatGPT, if AI is going to take over the world, good luck because you can't even make a map right now with proper logo placement. Because I don't know what NDAN is. And it certainly isn't the National Atmospheric and Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, whatever. I can't even say it. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's INDAN, so whatever. But I added the icons in myself. I'll fix that logo. I'll keep the background. Hey, at least it got most of the lower 48 right, what we call the CONUS, whatever. And it got the stats right. I fed in the Twitter feed of the stats into ChatGPT and said, make a map. And it tried. Anyway, the hot spot yesterday, McAllen, Texas at 91 degrees. And that is way over here, pretty much in the center of the sunshine. And then the coldest spot yesterday was, what is that, Salina? I think that's how you would say that. And that's roughly right up there in the middle of the snowflake at a really balmy minus 22. BS, balmy, yeah. Very, very cold, so a pretty good temperature difference between those two locations. But yeah, I'll use the background graphic and change the stats around and change the logo, whatever. At least I've got a start. ChatGPT helped me with that. So looking at the weather map this morning, uh, not wonderful out there for sure, depending on where you are, especially in the northern parts of the country. Pretty much the mid-Atlantic here, notwithstanding. We'll talk about that in a minute. But pretty much north of I don't know, almost 36, 37 degrees latitude, something like that. It's miserable. Very cold, very windy, blustery. You got all kinds of weather coming into the Pacific Northwest. Freezing fog, I believe that's what that is in parts of western Oklahoma. You don't see that very often outside of marine areas, but I've seen it a few times so far this winter season. Freezing fog advisory, western and northwestern Oklahoma, and the visibility is a quarter mile or less. But the problem is those little water droplets attach to stuff and they freeze. And so you have this freezing fog. It can get on your car, metal especially, any exposed surfaces, bridges, overpasses, trees, power lines, whatever. But yeah, freezing fog. Normally you see that in coastal areas, freezing spray too. Look at this in the Pacific Northwest. Wind advisory. We're going to focus on this more coming up. Again, I got 15 minutes. Then it's Shea Gibson time. So I got to make sure I get through all this quickly and efficiently. But really nasty pattern coming in with a lot of rainfall. We'll focus on this separately in a minute. Flood watches in parts of Idaho and along the Olympics and the Cascades in Washington and Oregon. And then wind, and cold all coming down to the border states with Canada. And then this junk all around here in the mid-Atlantic, extending inland to West Virginia and the Bluegrass State, Kentucky, winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, all the way down into North Carolina. And yeah, we'll take a look at that on the cams real quick. Let's zoom in here to Cary, North Carolina. I keep waiting, and then, hey, it popped up quickly today. Thank goodness. I keep waiting for some snow here because if you've just tuned into this show the first time or seen me mention this the first time, this is a camera at my son's apartment. He and his wife live there in Cary, and they're looking out over this street here. Not going to tell you exactly where it is, but I mean, it doesn't matter. He's in a secure building. Good luck. Good luck even finding him. But you have to be careful, right? But I am keeping an eye on this for wintry weather. Not today, probably. Maybe tonight, but this show only goes until about 11 a.m. or so. So we won't be around to watch it. But we'll see if I get any highlights. Once you get some ice and snow on this, especially with this elevation change right here, heading down to this major intersection, it is only a matter of time that we will have winter shenanigans like that red car speeding through there. Somebody is going to FAFO, and we're going to see it live one of these days. All right? All right. We're not cheering for it, but if it happens, we like to see it. We're just weird like that, aren't we? So let's go back up here to Annette, Alaska, as I ad-lib my way through the time it takes for Ness to wake up and populate the screen with live video. Thank you. Rain up there, not snow. Sun hasn't come up yet. Pretty dark up there because they're at a much higher latitude. That is a weather station from our friend Tim Bruno. And we got to get him on one day if he's up this time of day. I got to message him. Hey, Tim, you up? We'll have to find out. Keep waiting for a bear or a deer or elk or something to move through that shot. I fixed the camera down here, slid it over so that we could see Pikes Peak. If this will just come up quickly for me, that would be great. We'll wait and ad lib some more. So these Nest cams, you can zoom in. There it is, and you can crop. And there's Pikes Peak in Colorado. What is that? Let me look that up real quick. I think that's what, 14,000 feet or something like that. I am going to Google it because I want to know. All right. How tall is Pikes Peak? And the answer is, I got to let it finish. Hey, I was right. Oh, come on. That's pretty good. You got to hand it to me. My geography degree coming in handy. I remember it's 14,115 feet. I said 14,000 something, right? Pretty good, as Larry David would say. Anyway, that's Pikes Peak out there in Colorado. This is the shot here from our friend Matt's place. As we wait for that to pop up, let me get my YouTube back going so that I can see what's happening with you fine folks on the chat. So yeah, there's a nice shot with the sun coming up in Parker, Colorado, with some kind of an alien jellyfish suspended in the air over here. We will get our UFO people on that as soon as possible. I'm just kidding. It's a lens flare, all right, from the sun shining in. But you could totally BS people and create an entire YouTube channel with millions of followers just going around and showing people, look, there's an example. There's UFOs and they're putting stuff in there's a bubble or whatever, iridescent. Nope, physics would explain that that's just a lens flare. See how easy it is to just make stuff up? You literally could. What's happening over in Pahrump? And this is going to take a while, so I got to hurry up through this. Come on, Pahrump. There you are. Got to get Paul to straighten it back up. He's a busy man, but as I've said before, that, my friends, is Mount Charleston. Las Vegas is over this way. And when it's cloudy out here at night, and even when it's clear, you can see the lights from Vegas. Of course you can. All right, that's enough of the cams. Let's move along because we got to get going here. We got about 10 minutes, and then Shea Gibson's going to jump on. Big problems out west, in the Northwest especially. I know they are a rainforest area. I've been up here before with the family. It's beautiful, but this looks like too much of a good thing. Rainfall amounts up to 10 inches are possible within the Olympics, the Cascades, and the coastal ranges. And yeah, that can be trouble for area streams, creeks, rivers, whatever, travel. So we got to be careful of that if we're out that way. In fact, they have the key messages from the Water Center, the National Water Center. Did you know we had such a thing? Yes, we do. And it's the Office of Water Prediction. And it's looking pretty rough out there overall with the considerable flood threat, widespread urban and river flooding, lots and lots of rain at the lower elevations, snow at the higher elevations. And these tabs, what's up with Firefox? Come on! The 3 to 7 day hazards, I thought this was interesting. Mostly up here in the northwest part of the country of any notable hazards, but heavy snow on the 10th of December coming up off of Lake Ontario into the Tug Hill region. Not enough for me to go up there. I got to wait for one of those really big ones. And we'll do the show from up there like in the morning, and then we'll go out and cover it live. I can't wait for that. Sooner than later, it'll happen. All right. This was interesting too from our friend Ben Knoll. An atmospheric river stretches over 7,000 miles from the Philippines to the Pacific Northwest today, triple the normal length. It threatens to bring serious flooding to Washington this week, as I just showed you, where precipitable water records for December are forecast to be broken in some areas. Rain and snow, all kinds of stuff. It's not just a made-up word for meteorologists and the like to, just throw around like we're special or something. It's been around for a while and is rooted in science. It is more than 30 years old, as coined in 1992 by Newell. Everybody knows Newell. Come on. Et al., right? You know everybody. But seriously, this is a real thing. There are all kinds of research papers. It's literally like a river in the sky, or more appropriately, a tropospheric river. Read all about it on your Google or your Chat GPT. The more you know, right? Didn't NBC or one of those channels used to have that? The rainbow thing that went across, the more you know. All right, looking at the Euro over this region. This is the Pac Northwest. There's Washington and Oregon, just to give you a little bit of a sense of place. And very heavy rain at the lower elevations, high elevation snows. And gosh, it's remarkable out there. It really is. Beautiful part of the country, of the continent, for that matter. Both countries, Canada and the United States. But this is going to be a lot of moisture coming in. And in fact, if we look at it, the total accumulated precip, lots and lots and lots of it. Look at that adding up. More than 10 inches across a large area. So this is going to be a big newsmaker. Something I do want to cover in the future as well. It just takes planning. I want this show to get a few weeks in before I start traveling again, and we can do the show on the road and whatever. But yeah, I want to go out there and cover something like that sometime down the road. All right, got about 7 minutes until it's Shea Gibson time. Thunderstorms, convective outlook. Good news for us, because it's been quite a year for severe weather. Big tornado year again. Another big hail year, of course. Luckily today, severe weather limited at best. Any convective activity, meaning thunderstorms, limited to extreme South Florida. So Javier, however you say it, Javier, down there in your neck of the woods in Miami, and our friend Adrian that runs Adrian's weather page down there. You have the thunderstorms all to yourselves, right? All right, what else do we got? Just seeing who's on here. We got Jaden and Scott and Karen, Javier, of course, and JS American, our friend Geek G. I know who that is, our man in Bermuda. Great to see you all on here. Thank you for tuning in. If you got any questions or comments, especially when we get to the Contrails topic in just a moment. Got to readjust my chair, slowly sinking into the floor. Anyway, not bad today for thunderstorms, but tomorrow, look at that. No thunderstorms forecast. Of course, that could change when we get to tomorrow, but that means there's not a lot of instability around anymore as we get deeper and deeper into December. The same thing for day 3, so that's good. All right, probably another crash tab. No? Okay, we're back. I don't know. How do you refresh or update Firefox? I guess I got to look into that. So it's cold now. And remember, I teased this with winter and cold, but is a warm-up coming? Maybe so. So here's a nice post from Ben the other day. A powerful surge of Arctic air has its sights set on central and eastern states this weekend. And I'm supposed to go to the Outer Banks this weekend with my friend Mike to replace one of the cams that's gone down at the pier. And it's going to be kind of chilly. No t-shirt for me. But anyway, temperatures may dive below -20 in the coldest places in the upper Midwest. But after that, the West may gift some of its warmth to the East for the holidays. And we can watch this go through one more cycle. There it is now. The cold air starts draining down. Yuck, yuck, and more. Look at that. I mean, just talk about how I mentioned that it's like molasses spilling in, just very thick, big chunk of cold air that comes out of Alaska and the Canadian prairies up there. It just sits there. It also sits over Siberia and can get lodged over. Cold air is definitely thick, a big dome of cold air, high pressure. But later on down the road, these are your above and well above average temps finally surging to the east as we get out towards this is the 18th of December. Please, please, please let this come to pass. That's the 20th. And then finally, December 21st, the first official day, roughly, of winter. I don't know if it's the 20th or 21st this year, whatever. The solstice. Doesn't matter. It looks like it's going to be warm. But, oh, more cold air lurking and ready to go after that. Terrific. Anyway, I need some warm weather. Looking at the next 7 days for you real quick here on the GFS. Move this out. There's the cold and the snow. The snow line gets pretty far south here on the GFS. We'll see. Maybe there is more snow to come than what the overall forecast is showing. Parts of Virginia, winter storm warning, kind of glossed over that. But overnight tonight is when everything should start to taper off. And then it's mainly just northern tier states and Pacific Northwest that get in on any sensible weather, like weather that you can feel, storms, that is. And now we're out at 1 week. And for the most part, a week from today, very little to talk about weather-wise, according to the GFS, as the lower 48 here, almost completely void of any major weather. That's remarkable. That word again, remarkable. So yeah, we shall see. All right, let me jump on the Zoom and see if Shea has entered the chat, so to speak. Come on, there we go. Let me send him a quick text message to make sure he got said email. Da-da-da. Where are you? There we are. Lots of text today. Did you get the link? Ready when you are. All right, interactive TV for you. Go back to sharing just for a minute because sharing is caring, right? So anyway, yeah, the next week, look at that. It is pretty interesting that most of the storm track is to the north right now, with the exception of well, they're north. I mean, come on. Seattle is not south, so that counts. It's the Pacific Northwest, but it's still north. And just not much of an active southern branch of the jet stream to interact with the polar air to give us any big storms. So there's that. All right, as we wait for Mr. Gibson, we will check INSO news real quick. El Nino Southern Oscillation currently today, bring up the black color to help it pop, still in the La Nina overall in the Pacific over a quite vast area of real estate down there. And probably going to hold on to that for the next couple of months or so. Haven't talked much about the Atlantic Basin, but generally speaking, warmer than average pretty much everywhere, but not alarmingly so. Nothing that jumps out. However, the Gulf, very warm compared to average, as is the Northwest Caribbean. Doesn't matter, hurricane season's over, so oh well. SOI wise, as we look at the state of the SOI, and typically just to remind you, when you have negative numbers, strongly negative, that usually gives us a positive INSO phase, or warmer than average temperatures in the equatorial Pacific. And when the SOI is strongly positive, like it generally is now, although it is weakening, as you can clearly see on the trend lines, but once it is positive, we do typically see more La Nina conditions because of the pressure patterns. When you have, oh, there he is. So we'll let Shea in just a moment. But when you have strongly positive, your flow is generally from east to west, and strongly negative, you get more westerly winds. And we don't have that right now. But the CFS is suggesting that we head towards El Nino still in the early part of next year. Hey, we can talk about that a little bit with Shea. So let me jump off the share, jump over to the participants button, and let's let the man in. Joining, joining, joined. There he is.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for joining me today. How's it going down there in Charleston?
It's good. A little chilly. I mean,
I know, right?
we've had just Seattle weather for
Yes.
days, man. It's been gloomy, cold. It's this is typical winter weather, and we're not even into winter yet. I mean, meteorological winter, yes, but
Right, right. Yeah, it's
we're
been
already
miserable.
there. So,
Yeah,
yep.
I just talking about that too. I showed what's happening in the Pacific Northwest. They're getting ready to get a pretty stout atmospheric river, but you're right. It's just been dreary. Went out to eat last night with my wife and daughter after church, and all the restaurants around here were packed because I figured it's Sunday night. Like you people need to be going to bed. We go to a late church due to this UNCW and they're having their church at our church, blah, blah, blah. So we get done like at six something. Texas Roadhouse had like a 30-minute wait. Longhorn was 15 to 20 because everybody's sick and tired of being at home. So they went out to eat. We've all been shut in because it's been Seattle weather. So gonna change though, right? Looks like it's gonna change towards the latter part of the month.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, the pattern, we're just in a La Nina pattern right now, and it's going to be up and down. Typically, we're above average on temperatures and right about average or below at the with the moisture. But we saw last year, early this year, um, in January, where that signal can trigger more of a wintry kind of event, along the
Right.
eastern half of the United States and even dip down in the southeastern area. It really just takes a lot of ingredients for that kind of thing to happen down here, and especially up in your neck of the woods too.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those hurry up and wait kind of things. And you can't trust a pattern 3, 4 weeks out, not even
Right.
not even 10 days, right? So
Well, I hope we do get a warm up because this has truly been awful. So we'll see. Well, introduce yourself if you don't mind. I know you through a lot of different. You got the Weather Flow shirt on, but you also, I think, have done. Did you do some work with Boeing, or you tell us? Tell us who Shea Gibson is.
yeah, yeah. So I've worked with WeatherFlow since late 2011, early 2012 as a wind forecaster, primarily with coastal winds in the eastern seaboard from Chesapeake Bay down to Jekyll Island, Georgia. And so mainly the Southeast region. I've led a team for 12, 13 years now. And so we really specialize in the maritime environment. Work with the National Weather Service. We have an array of weather stations all around the coastal U.S., Great
Yes,
Lakes,
you
outlying
do. Yep.
territories. So we work with the Weather Services partners, National Hurricane Center, so they get a lot of their observations from some of our rather robust commercial grade stations that we have that are made to withstand a lot of temperamental weather, so to speak. But so I do that, and then in another life, I'm in the aerospace, non weather related, but in aerospace as a boy. I've worn a lot of different hats. I tell
Yeah.
you, anything from procurement to contracts negotiations to program manager. So I do a lot of different things there. And it's just a whole different thing. So, but all tied in, in and around that is what I love to do with weather. And so it's been a great thing. I do a lot of sail race forecasting for
Yes, you do.
um, quantum sales is one of my, I love quantum sales. I'm one of my biggest fans, and I love working with them. But also Charleston Race Week, so a lot of different regattas around the U.S. I love
Hmm.
to come in and really just get a good perspective on wind across the course, any currents,
Yeah.
any other factors that go into it. So really, really fun. I enjoy what I do. And so I enjoy doing some social media posts and keeping up
Yep.
the weather and keeping the followers informed of what's going on. Keep the hype out of it, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we have a segment called Rumors of Storms. I heard it through the algorithm where I try to get in front of the hype and we try to identify it before it's out there and discuss it. But we can't
Hmm.
hide from it. So let's discuss. And then the winter is going to be a big winter storm eventually in severe weather season, the next April 27th or whatever. And then, of course, hurricane season speaks for itself. That is where I'm the most well versed and, try to put more context on it and give people tools of what they can look for to see so that when they're standing around the water cooler or whatever now and the social media version of that and someone because everybody knows a weather geek in their lives and you often get those texts, hey, did you see this? And it'll be a TikTok post or an Instagram or whatever, and it's a Cat 4 parked off of Charleston at day 14, that our audience can then respond with not just, oh, that's hogwash, but the MJO is not favorable right now. That's a whatever. You become smarty pants. That's what we're trying
Hmm.
to do, just to have people wise up a little bit beyond just no, that's not going to happen. Why? Why wouldn't it be feasible? And just get people to be smarter about it. We live in this 15-second, if we're lucky, world of weather information and all sorts of other stuff, which brings us to why I got you here today. But yes, getting in front of the hype, very important. And by the way, speaking of your weather flow stations, got to have you on again down the road on a Tech Tuesday episode to talk about how hard it is to get good wind data. It is not as easy as people think, and we'll just leave it at that. And yeah, when you said that, that prompted me. I would have to have Shea back on a Tech Tuesday episode.
I'd love to. I think it'd be a great episode to cover on what all is involved with these weather stations, what sort,
Yeah.
the comms part of it, all the way to the
Yes.
technical. Can't give any
Theft.
any kind of real details about it, right? But we can definitely talk about
Right.
equipment,
Yeah.
equipment
Yeah.
wise, where to place them, right? Like
Right.
how to place a weather station. Most people think you can just put something up on your roof and hey, you're good to go. But nope, that's not always the case.
Right.
A
Sighting.
lot of
Yep.
friction over land, but we try to set ours over water. But yes, definitely a good topic for another show. Absolutely, I'm on board.
Well, let me use that word friction to try to segue into why I brought you here. There's also a lot of friction on social media when it comes to a very common phenomenon in our normally Carolina blue skies called contrails. And over the years, we have seen the internet collectively turn this into something of a just a phenomenon of its own, where people call them chemtrails or spraying or they are doing it again. And you made a Facebook post, this is where I saw it on my Facebook a week ago, and I just thought it was so well written, Shay. I really did. Not just trying to blow sunshine your way because I know you. I never met you in person. We got to still do that and get our kids together to go hunt some bullfrogs one summer before they all go off to college, and I've blown that opportunity. But anyway, not just because I know you on Facebook and you're a good dad and you do all that kind of fun stuff like I do, but this was a really just concise, non, like you're not burning people down. There's no ad hominem attacks towards people that call them chemtrails. It's just education. And I said, oh, we have to have him come on and talk about it. So I'm going to read it to you real quick, folks. This is from a week ago. He said, be warned that today will be a heavy contrail day over the southeast region as a sub-freezing supercooled moist layer is sitting aloft above 6 kilometers. This is due to what is called isentropic lift, where moisture from the Gulf is streaming up and across the mid and upper levels of our atmosphere. There, it is supercooled at minus 20 Fahrenheit and drops to a whopping minus 60 or minus 70, even higher up. So when a plane flies through it, the freezing droplets are perturbed and they aggregate into contrails, and I'll add this condensation trail, that eventually dissipate slower today simply due to the thickness of the moist column aloft, etc., etc. This is just so well written. So you said at the end, so again, there's no spraying or chemtrails going on, just a typical moist atmosphere aloft, easily explained by those of us that have taken the time to learn about atmospheric dynamics and physics instead of believing uneducated media influencers and getting triggered. Thus the friction part that I was segueing. So, contrails, like when did it start becoming, do you know, is there like a is it just like has it always been around that people thought, oh, those must be chemtrails, or was it an internet thing? Like once you had the internet, like a chicken egg thing. We'll start with that.
Yeah, the chicken or the egg, right? Well, it's always been around, right? So, as far back as planes were going high up, like high up in the atmosphere
Right.
to create them. So even back in World War II, there's a lot of articles about pilots. My grandfather was a pilot in World War II, and he would tell me that they would go out on a mission and it would get scrubbed because the contrails were so thick. They were persistent, non-spreading contrails, which meant that the lines were long. It was leading you right. They could see you coming, basically. And so they would
Oh
have to
yeah,
abort
yeah,
and they would have to
makes
wait
sense.
for a drier
Right.
atmospheric day. Well, back then they didn't launch weather balloons all over the place, all over Europe, like we do in the United States now, and even over in Europe. So they would, at times, they would try to get something as close to the border as possible to fly these planes through, these bombers. So it's been around since then, even before. And as the demand for flights has become greater over time, right? We have more planes, thousands of more
Yeah,
planes in the sky every day, tens of thousands playing around the world, going up and down, creating these contrails in areas where it's allowed, right? Where the
yeah,
atmosphere
right.
allows for it. Last week, I just saw something that was streaming up over South and North Carolina. Up to a certain point, Virginia is about where it cut off. It was just that one segment of atmosphere that was allowing for the contrails to form. So it just proves again the fact that it's not widespread around the globe. But yes, to
Right.
answer your question, these have been around for ever since planes were going up and doing it.
And so, without getting into too deep of, hey, please explain a sounding, but it is pretty easy to understand, and I like how you circled it, that it's the moisture and the sub-freezing air. So, it's very cold the higher up you get because the air molecules start to spread out
Hmm.
and you dissipate the heat, and that's usually how it works. Obviously, have temperature inversions and whatever, but in a simple, regular atmosphere, and you're talking about minus 20, and then you get down to minus 60, minus 70. We've measured some of that with our hurricane balloon testing over the years, and it's just crazy to see those kinds of cold temperatures. But the cold alone is not going to do it, right?
Right. No, there needs to be moisture up there. So in this particular case, you have cold air diving down across the south, which settles down to the surface, condensing air settling down. And as those westerly winds aloft are pulling your southwest over the Gulf of Mexico, pushing that warm air, which rises up above that cold air layer, and it just pushes it up to the mid levels, right? So
Hmm.
in this particular case, you can see the moist column from that Gulf moisture trapped very high up. 500 millibars is roughly 18,000 feet, right? So anything above that is generally where planes will fly. So they fly
Yeah,
anywhere from 20 to about, I'd say 38. Most don't go over 40,000 feet.
right.
So if you're traveling in a jet plane at that altitude and there's a moist column, so the green on the left is the dew point, on the right side is the air temperature. The closer those are together is the moister the air. So you can see high up where that moist layer is, and then
Yeah,
there's a dry
very
layer just
close.
below that.
Right.
And it's a thick column. So that means the thicker that column is, that moist column, the longer those contrails are going to be around for, unless they're flying at a shallow area of that column.
Yeah,
Then it dries out below because it does fall once it aggregates in ice crystals. Gravity will, help it to fall a little bit, but it will sublimate eventually.
right.
And so the thicker the column, the longer it's going to be around. We call that a persistent non-spreading contrail, where it's just a line for a long period of time. The persistent spreading is when you see them get really wide and it
Yeah,
actually can obscure the sky
right.
with enough of them up there. That's from turbulence in the air and winds aloft being a lot more, diverse in their directions.
Right.
And so that will spread those out.
So enough of them, and when they do spread out like that, they do prevent some incoming solar radiation from coming in. And so technically, these folks are right that it is changing the weather, but it's just a minute amount. So we'll give them that. We'll spot you that. Anything up there that's creating any kind of cloud cover, okay, fine. We've changed the weather probably imperceptibly, unless there's a lot. And you see on these big travel days, and we have a north-south corridor, probably the ones I see, you see just a few minutes later. And you look out there and they're just very prevalent on some days. So let me ask you this. I try to explain it to people because there was a guy that I met, I've known him for a number of years out in Wickenburg, Arizona, and he had a business card he gave me. He said, saw him just this past summer, and it was this meeting they were going to have about stopping the chemtrails. That they were going to have legislation or I don't know. And I was like, I'm gonna call him Barry. That's not his name, just in case he's watching. I said, Barry, let me explain it to you real quick. It's just so easy. And the way I explained it, because I know you said in your piece there that it was the the air getting perturbed, but I thought it was also, and maybe it's both, that you have the jet moving through this cold and moist layer, and the air comes into that hot engine. And just like you have hot air that's moist in your body, that when you breathe out in a cold atmosphere, and it doesn't take that much, even 50 degrees, whatever it is, you can see your breath. And that's a little tiny cloud. It condenses
Correct?
and it's gone. That's what's coming out the back of that engine is warm, moist air because it is getting sucked into that engine, heated up. It's still moist and it comes out the back at that minus 60. Bam, you get an instant cloud. Is that an accurate way to describe that? Or because that just makes sense to me,
It is. So you have another thing. You also have exhaust from the engine itself creating nuclei particles. I didn't want to get too detailed in that post, but
right?
there are nuclei particles that are generated out the back of the engine, which aggregate, all of that activity aggregates the supercooled droplets. So
Something
what
to
you
stick
have is
to. Yeah,
tiny little droplets that are supercooled. They're not sticking, right?
right.
They're suspended. They're just individual little particles that are just spread apart enough to not stick together and freeze, right? Because the more aggregating you get, the more sticky it gets. It
Sure.
becomes, gravity weighs down on it. So when
Yeah.
it's suspended, it's all separated. But when you fly through it and you get that warm exhaust with those nuclei particles, and it causes those super cool droplets to stick together and freeze to these dust particles, then you get this elongated ice trail behind it. So
Right.
that's exactly what's going on. So the three ones that is short-lived on a dry day, you may see a small one which
Yes.
disappears pretty quickly behind the plane.
Yeah.
That means there's very, very little moisture up there, very
Yeah.
dry. Um, you got to think of two things. Number one, the air is thinner, there's less oxygen up there, and then also it's
Yep.
colder the higher up you go. And so yes, you can have a day where those trails are short because there's less moisture available, and then the other days where they're long, they stick around for a while before they sublimate, or other days they spread. So those are the three different kinds of contrails you have.
And sublimate for people, that's where it just goes basically from a solid right into a gas again.
That's
It
correct.
just it's poof, where you watch ice disappear in your freezer. How'd that happen?
That's right. Yeah, ice shrinking in a freeze is a good example of sublimation.
Right.
It's also known as virga aloft on some days in the winter when you have snow that falls, or maybe even grapple, which does not make it to the ground. It dries
Right.
up. Yep.
Grapple. Some people call that nerd hail. I know it's a different. Greg Nordstrom likes that term. Nerd hail looks like candy nerds. So somewhat related though, these the fall streak hole, whatever you call them, a plane will fly through a cloud layer, and you get these what's it called, a fall streak hole.
Right?
I,
Hole
I've
punch
never
clouds, fall streak
hole
holes,
punch
right?
cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So again, the plane is disturbing an actual cloud layer. If you don't mind, just shed a little light on that because you get lots of pictures of those, and it's this oval, and then everybody starts freaking out. It's here comes the second coming to an aliens here or whatever. It's like, nope, again, physics and science, people.
Right. Again, if you look at it, if you were to look at the sounding for the day, you'll find a super cool layer up there aloft. And again, it's flying through, it's a very thin layer. You rarely see it being very thick, like longer than a kilometer or two. Um, they tend to be really thin. Sometimes you can even call it an inversion, where you just have a thin, warm, moist layer up there, and the plane's
Yeah,
flying right through it. Again, it's aggregating those ice crystals, perturbing that area as it
yeah,
flies through, and
yeah,
it pulls those crystals in behind it as they aggregate. So you end up with like a hole in the sky where it totally rips right through that whole super cool layer, and it stretches it downwards behind it. So it's almost like if you dive into the water, if you look at,
right,
if you were to color, you would see it like pulling in behind you as well for a short period of time. But up there, it gets suspended for longer because those ice crystals are
right.
visible for a little while before they finally sublimate. So yeah,
Fascinating.
that's
Yeah.
another one. Yeah.
And then the pool thing's exactly right. I can picture it with bubbles. You hit it, you go in, and oh, that's great. Just explaining stuff in everyday terms that you can see. Pretty remarkable. So I like it when you'll have a plane create a contrail above a cloud layer that itself is thin enough that you can see the shadow of the contrail on the clouds that it's above.
That
Those are
no,
really cool.
that is exactly right. So there's another one out there um where a lot of these folks may think that, oh, here's a reason why it's real. Because look at
Right.
that black line. And all it is a visual sort of phenomenon, optical phenomenon that goes on where you're exactly right. It's sort of an inverted, like it's like a mirror image, but it really is just a shadow, the
Right.
shadow of the of the contrail itself.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's to us, it's very simple math and physics, but to a certain segment, we work for the people that are behind it, and we're just making this stuff up. There's no
Yeah.
convincing.
I've been called a paid shill and a lot of other different things too. And I think you gotta think about that, Mark. There were some projects that went on back in the 60s, 50s,
Yep.
60s, even into the 70s. One of them was called Project Storm Fury, and they did do some dropping. They tried to seed, they tried to do things with hurricanes to see if they could dispel convection or
Right.
figure out ways of modifying the weather. And I don't mean modifying as in trying to generate a hurricane. What they were always trying to do was trying to
Yeah. Diminish it.
weaken it,
Yeah.
right? So silver iodide was used, and so those things, at one point in time, there was some experiments going on. A lot of that was classified information. I think some of that has come out, but there is some background, some flavor to be painted for all of this to sort of come up. But I think what's happened is you just have a lot of social media entities out there trying to push the narrative, and especially Facebook's really bad. Instagram's getting bad too. But I think, between TikTok and Facebook, you have like tens of thousands of all these bot accounts that are pushing these narratives, and there's actual groups, let's say 100,000 people, that's just called a chemtrail group. And
Yeah.
there might be 10,000 real people in that group, and the rest of them are just, I think there's a combination of troll accounts and narrative accounts that are in there just trying to feed it. And there's a lot of monetization going on behind that as well. There's folks that are making money off of it. So if you're, believing these folks, I would say you're on social media, you're thinking, chemtrails are real. Do some research. Look at, the weather balloon soundings are free to the public. You
Hmm.
can look at it. They go up every day. There is absolutely nothing like that going on. And also, Mark, there laws have been passed about weather modification, but there's no specifics about chemtrails. Now, that's another
Right.
topic for another day, perhaps, on weather mods, because seeding happens naturally and some other things like that.
Yeah.
But for all
I
intents
mean,
and purposes, the chemtrails is really, if you just do some research on the science behind it. I've gotten someone say, why do they happen even in the summertime? It's 90 degrees. Well, it's 90 at the surface, but
right.
it's never going to be 90
Hello.
degrees at 18,000 plus feet.
Right.
You're just
Never.
not going to find that unless, a volcano erupts and sends
Right.
ash plume that high up in the air. You have to understand just basic things like that, right? And just trust the meteorologists. We're not out here getting paid. I mean, I wish I was getting paid to tell the truth every day. It's like it's and the truth is that it's not happening. You just have to understand what's going on up in the sky and understand that the demand for plane flights is much higher than it was even 10 years ago. There's
Sure.
just more up there. There's going to be
Yeah.
more lines some days and some days less.
Right. Right. So I think in Florida, I know they passed legislation of no weather modification. And again, I saw this thing in Arizona that was trying to gain some ground. It's just, we're trying to help. At the end of the day, I don't want to just make fun of people. And that's where, when I was engaging this guy, I didn't laugh at him. I didn't. I thought, all right, this is an opportunity to, tell him the deal, like what it really is, and maybe I don't know how much he's fearing talking. Oh, come on, like it may be too much of a weight on his shoulders from the people. You can't come in here saying that, Barry. Like, what are you talking about? Now you're part of it. Like, oh, and it's like the Truman Show. Remember, he goes, part of what, Truman? I would have to be part of it, and there is no it. It's
Yeah.
like But in the Truman Show, there was. That's the problem. That's why that analogy doesn't work.
Well, in today's world, it's they. And
Right,
who is they? I can
right,
never find out who they is. And so, and there's a lot of graphics that are shared all over that make absolutely no sense. I can't get my mind wrapped around how those came to be or where they came from. And there's never, I always ask, where's an official source showing this?
right.
And that's what you got to stick with. What's official? It comes from NASA or it comes from NOAA. One or the other. They're involved with our sky and what goes on aloft and all the way up to space. So those are the official sources I go by. There are some over in other parts of the world that I would consider official as well, part of the Euro, the EMCWF and modeling agencies and all that. They they tend not to. I don't see a whole lot of information coming out of Europe and other countries as much as United States. I feel like
Right.
it's more localized to our part of the world where most of these people are just going, thinking that the chemtrails are real. And like you said, it's not allowed, and I'm laughing at anybody. I'm just trying to educate one post at a time. It may seem like I'm picking at it a little bit, but I think it's important when we have it like that one day. There was going to be a lot, and I get tagged in a lot of these posts, right? So a lot of us we
Exactly.
get pulled into this,
Yeah.
this kind of war, and all we do is
Right.
just keep our nose to the books and stay
Yeah.
steady. I'm not going to change my mind on it because I know what's going on up there, and that's it's really just a matter of understanding how many planes are going in the air. Look at Flight Radar 24. That'll show you. You can actually track a plane,
Yeah.
and then if it's at the right height, you can, on the right day, you can actually see the lines that it's creating as it goes through. So I just say to everyone out there, just do some research, understand that there's science behind it.
Yeah, and it's much more fascinating, the truth. And like what you said, I never thought about going back to World War II. And you think about the very first, this is something I have to dig into later, just as my own curiosity gets piqued. When was the first high altitude plane? When did that happen? When was the first contrail? Because, and did it surprise them, or was that predicted? These are questions we can address another time maybe, but it once man started figuring out, which is another thing, by the way, that really surprises me when you look at birds and how they've been around for hundreds of millions of years or whatever, and it took us until what, 1908? It's
Yeah,
just
pretty
kind of
much.
funny.
I mean, back then they had to outfit planes with radio sondes. That was an
Right,
early way of transmission. It was to capture it in real time and into
right,
the device and then come back down and interpret it later.
right.
Now we have internet. We have weather balloons that go up and transpond all the way up, until they pop, right?
Yeah,
And so we're constantly getting vertical soundings, and planes around the world are getting vertical soundings as they go up and down now too. They're all outfitted. Companies like Panorama, Panoramic. I'm sorry, they have supercomputing now that does modeling, and so there's planes. Each airline will have their own tablets, right? That have their turbulence maps and everything for their own pilots
yeah,
because their planes they've all become vertical soundings.
right. And planes
Yep.
are basically flying computers these days. Yeah, we just saw the thing with the A320 and solar storm activity or something like that. And anyway, so yes, the truth is actually much more interesting in my opinion. It really is. It's more fascinating, and it's even better because it's the truth. And so you don't have to hide in some secret room and have these meetings of something that's not happening. So live in the
Yeah.
free world of truth and knowledge and science, and we will embrace you. Believe me, we're not here to make fun of anybody because the truth is, I think, much more fascinating. Well, we're almost at the top of the hour. Anything else you want to add before we let you go?
Nope, I would just say it is an amazing thing that we have, Mark. It's fascinating to understand this more than try to believe in other conspiracy theory. How much weight is suspended in the sky above our planet is just amazing.
Sure.
And that's one thing I love about this science is how do we gauge how much moisture up there? And we talk about how many, cubic tons of, how many miles of cubic tons of water that there are out there, or cubic miles of in tonnage for that
Sure.
matter. But yeah, it's pretty fascinating. If you take the time to look up and research our atmosphere, it's like going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I agreed. Well, I appreciate it. I would love to have you on again soon to talk about some of the tech of trying to gather wind data, especially. I know that has been especially hard In my career, I've been trying it for over 20 years, and we've had some successes, we've had some failures, that it is not as easy as people think. We'll have to do that on a Tech Tuesday before too long. Shea Gibson, thanks for hanging out with us and explaining contrails, and we'll see another post, I'm sure, down the road of when to look for him, and people can see he was right on the money. You can follow Shea on the social media. I'll show you real quick, at least on the Twitter here. Let me get rid of that. So Shea Gibson, it's Shea Gibson WX, Shea Gibson Weather, and you're on Facebook, easy to find as well. I'm assuming.
Yep, Shea Gibson Dash Meteorologist on Facebook and S Gibson FX on Instagram.
Perfect. Well, thanks for hanging out with us today. Have a good rest of your week, Mr. Gibson.
Thank you. Good to see you again,
See you.
Mark. Take
Yes,
care.
sir. Bye bye. All right. So let me get back to the screen share. Huge thank you to Shea. What'd you guys think about that over on the YouTube chat? Let's see. The science is more interesting. Yep. Yeah, that's the good thing, Karen. This will be available forever on the YouTube cloud, and especially when I put the description in, hopefully it'll pick up some traction because we'll put that word contrail and chemtrail in there. We'll trip the algorithm in our favor for people to learn. What was it? It was The Truth Is Out There. What was that show? Um, you guys will remember. Doesn't matter. Let me finish up with our show, and we will keep going from there. I'm going to try to remember the name of that show, though. It's going to bother me. The X-Files, right? The Truth Is Out There. All right, let's go back. Let me get rid of this. Got a couple more segments, and then we are done for today. There we are. Oh, yeah, I know I need to go back to the rumors of storms. Forgot. We don't want to. We talked about the algorithm. We live in an algorithmically based society, and I think it's actually not good. But again, more stories for other days, right? So we're looking for storms out beyond the 7 day time frame. And let's jump to make sure we're on the 6ZGFS. Yes, we are. We covered the first 7 days with mostly northern tier storm systems cutting across on this one operational model. But what about after 1 week out? Anything that raises any eyebrows that'll get hundreds of thousands of likes, clicks, shares, and whatever? Maybe, but still nothing that really screams major winter storm. I mean, if you just took these right here at, verbatim at hour 3:30, December 22nd, all right, maybe, but again, at 330 hours out, it just doesn't jump off the page as being something that everybody's going to start talking about. Now, this one at hour 366, you got snow and ice from Quebec, Canada, all the way down to Austin, Texas. Big Arctic air mass with a ridge off the east coast over here. You can clearly see that. And the battle zone in between. That would be pretty noteworthy, but again, it's pretty far out in time. And it's typically not what people are going to share. The things that I'm talking about where you see, let's use this red color here, maybe. Let's change this to red. Like a big low sitting right here with snow thrown back in over New England, 40 to 50 inches, whatever, blizzard conditions, trailing cold front, nor'easter heading out. You know what I mean? That's the one that we're just not seeing. The jet streams are not lining up, the subtropical jet with the polar jet. The dynamics just aren't there. So far, so good. Some little mischievous subtropical deal. And the other day, there was some stuff on the GFS. Let me just show you this real quick. This was kind of funny. Let's go back to Sunday. I might as well just show you this for the heck of it to kind of prove my point. This is from Sunday. No, it wasn't Sunday. Maybe it was Saturday. This proves, too, how quickly stuff disappears. Was it Saturday? I don't know. There was one run of the GFS. It's going to take a while to find it now. Where something popped up down in the Caribbean. There it is. Yep, that's the one. And again, it's at hour 216, 228, whatever. And, passes just west of Grand Cayman, right off the southeast coast of Florida on, basically the 2 days before Christmas. Hype storm. Not going to happen, more than likely, because the models just can't resolve the details that far out. And it's when we have these during hurricane season and they're parked off of a major metropolitan area that people start getting all worked up about it. and usually for no good reason. All right. So email me, hermark@gmail.com. You can tag me up on the Twitters there. And we're also in our Discord, part of Patreon. And on tomorrow's show, it is Tech Tuesday time. And an eventual Tech Tuesday, we're going to have Shea back on to help me talk about gathering wind data and how difficult that is. We'll discuss, I'm just thinking ahead here, our equipment, the RM Young anemometers, and whatever he can talk about. A lot of it is obviously proprietary within WeatherFlow, but just citing the technology, how you do the comms, I think that's brilliant. I'm glad that kind of popped into the conversation that we will have Shea on in the future. But tomorrow, on tomorrow's Tech Tuesday, I'm going to show you an article and I'm going to dig into it a little bit more. A friend of mine that works at Hurricane Research Division shared it with me today and it prompted me, hey, I know what my Tech Tuesday is going to be. We're going to talk about UAS systems, that's unmanned aerial systems, whatever, in tornado research. A new project from NSSL, the National Severe Storms Laboratory. So CJ will be on with me tomorrow, and severe weather is a big part of his life. He is a big severe weather fan. So he and I will have a good engaging chat about this UAS use in severe weather research, especially tornadoes. Coming tomorrow. Again, I'm on Twitter at Hurricane Track, Patreon as well. You're watching on YouTube, more than likely. I think that's pretty much where it is. And I appreciate that. Don't forget, share with your friends and family, especially if you find something interesting. It's all there for you to share as you wish. From all of us at the Hurricane Track community, I am Mark Sutta. Thanks for helping me make this happen. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye. I got to remember how to exit more gracefully. See you guys tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.